The story of Abraham and Sarah, a journey of faith. Abraham, originally called Abram, lived in the city of Ur of the Chaldeans. He was married to Sarai, later called Sarah. They were settled, comfortable, and already advanced in years. Sarai had one deep sorrow: she was unable to have children. One day God spoke to Abram and called him to leave his homeland, his relatives, and everything familiar. God promised to show him a new land and said, "I will make you into a great nation, and all peoples on earth will be blessed through you." This was a remarkable promise, especially because Abram and Sarai had no children. Yet Abram believed God. By faith he obeyed and began a long journey into the unknown, trusting God's word more than his circumstances, waiting and struggling with faith. As years passed, God continued to reassure Abram of his promise. God promised that Abram's descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky. Abram believed, and God counted his faith as righteousness. However, time passed, and still there was no child. Sarai grew weary of waiting. In her frustration, she suggested that Abram have a child through her servant Hagar, following the custom of that time. Abram agreed, and Hagar gave birth to Ishmael. Although Ishmael was born, this was not the child God had promised. This decision brought tension and pain into the household. It was a reminder that human impatience cannot replace God's perfect timing. God renews his promise. When Abram was 99 years old, God appeared to him again. God changed his name from Abram, meaning exalted father, to Abraham, father of many nations. Sarai's name was changed to Sarah, meaning princess. God clearly promised that Sarah herself would give birth to a son. Abraham laughed, not in disbelief but in amazement. Sarah, too, laughed when she later overheard the promise, finding it impossible to believe at her age. Yet God responded with a powerful question. Is anything too hard for the Lord? The birth of Isaac. At the time God had promised, Sarah conceived and gave birth to a son. They named him Isaac, which means laughter. Their laughter of doubt was turned into laughter of joy. God had proven himself faithful. What seemed impossible became reality. Sarah declared, "God has brought me laughter, and everyone who hears about this will laugh with me." Testing of faith years later, God tested Abraham's faith in a deeply challenging way. God asked Abraham to offer Isaac as a sacrifice. Though heartbroken, Abraham obeyed, trusting that God would somehow provide. At the very last moment, God stopped Abraham and provided a ram in place of Isaac. God reaffirmed his covenant, showing that he never intended harm but desired obedience and trust. The later years. Sarah lived to the age of 127 and died in the land God had promised them. Abraham mourned her deeply and ensured she was buried with honor. After her death, Abraham continued to walk with God until his own death at the age of 175. Isaac became the child through whom God's promise continued, leading eventually to the nation of Israel, and ultimately to Jesus Christ, through whom all nations are blessed.